Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy here, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with special guest and
Scott Garibay.
Dave.
So today we're going to talk about high magic versus low magic campaigns. Each one of us have a completely separate view on, what the appropriate amount of magic items in a campaign should be. So let's dive right in. What do you guys think?
High magic, right? So why scrabble in the dirt? That's my take.
I say keep them scrabbling in the dirt. They always have a reason to go back out on the road.
I'm in the middle. I like there to be, the characters that actually have magic items, but I think especially with, 5th edition, they try to keep things curved down just a little bit.
And you don't need them.
You don't necessarily need them. The game is designed to, really be able to work without them. But especially with the attunement rules, it really says, hey, you've only got 3 quote-unquote spaces, slots, whatever you want to call it, for the good stuff. All of the other, things that are in the game are like, well, you'll just have to, use the miscellaneous or, occasionally useful stuff. You're not just going to be loaded down with, like 3rd editions. Like, there's 13 slots to fill, and, many campaigns where, well, I'm missing a ring and a belt. DM, get on it. So it's a different feel.
So absolutely, I am very, very high magic, and the reason why is I feel like life is scrabbling in the dirt. Why should your D&D game say be the same as your life? That doesn't make any sense to me. The other thing is it's Dungeons and Dragons, right? So if you're going into a I have created the list of a dragon's horde when my group defeated a dragon. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like 50 items, thousands of gold pieces, and that's crazy. And so if half the game's name contains creatures that have mountains of treasure, I believe from Gary Gygax from the beginning was saying, and this goes to your point, to me, another game in Dungeons and Dragons is your slots. And so every game I play in, I would like to be playing the game of slots. Hey, I am limited to the slots I have, and I need to figure out which of these magical items fit in these slots. That's how high magic I roll.
All right,
I am extremely high
then let
magic.
me ask you this question. I recently, we recently talked about the D&D movie on one of our videos, and I was really unaware of the 3rd D&D movie because it's not even really widely available on DVD.
Yeah, I saw it.
But I went and saw it. I watched it, and the guy literally walks into a magic item shop and is like, "Oh, I'll take a bag of holding and this thing here and that thing there." What is your opinion on? Oh, can I, as an adventurer, walk into a town and go to a magic item shop?
So, one, I think one of the things that's great about 5th edition is they did a great job of telling you, this is a town, this is a village, this is a city, and here's the numbers that actually match that. So, to me, a magic shop should be in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition city. So, if you're in a town or a village, then you have one guy who has 3 items in a chest at the back of his, out of his hut, and he brings it out because one adventurer died there once, and somebody's kid is an adventurer and sent something back, and so you scale it down. But I am absolutely for being able to flip your magic items for half gold and get new ones, and the reason why is it's just people like to kill things and take their stuff, and I am all for that. I don't pretend that D&D is anything other than it is, and I love letting people kill stuff, kill creatures and take their gear and flip it. It's magical eBay in my campaign. I love it.
There's a whole ideology discussion, Justin. People like to kill stuff or kill things and take their stuff right there. But when I originally started playing this game, we were lucky to have one wizard in a tower outside of town that you could go to, and he would identify your magic items for a fee, and maybe he would buy some of them. Very much like a lot of the old school gaming that I played in was far more like it was more like Lord of the Rings. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it was more rare and special when you found the magic item and it meant something.
And he still plays that style.
And I
today,
still play
guys.
that style. Like, hey, you know what? It's not like, here, take this +1 sword and put it with all the rest. You know, there's a card of them, like, you know, stacked high.
Now, over the decades that we have been playing, there is a game where Dave totally threw this mindset.
I'm a little ashamed
to
of
the
that
waist.
game.
He's ashamed that I'm gonna.
Welcome to the group.
I'm totally gonna throw him under the bus here. We ran this game. You know, it was his own campaign setting that he ran in, and we went off and we did high adventure. We had one campaign arc. You know, where we ran like, I think 13th through like 18th level or something along those lines.
No, the actual initial characters started off at 5th.
Well, I mean the second part of the game, when we did this one arc where we left we left town and we didn't come back for half a dozen levels, but when we came back, there is literally, I typed it up, it is literally pages and pages worth of magical gear that most adventurers would drool over to get their hands on, and this is our cast-off stuff.
Your extra dimensional storage spaces, I don't even know if there was really legitimately enough room in them.
It is something that we literally, we don't play do you have the serious capacity to haul all of that? But every single character had a quiver of Hilhona, bracers of storage. I mean, bracers. There was, each one had a pair.
Yep.
We had a bag of holding or multiple. We had portable holes. And we all had all of this stuff, and it was like, okay, guys, we need to make sure that you're putting your stuff in the right place because we don't want to create any astral pockets here, So it was really serious, out of character. All right, making sure you do this, but every single character had multiple backup weapons in case something went wrong, and beyond that, there were. Using the third edition standards, where like something of speed was like a +2 or +3 equivalent, there were items that were +8s, +9s. I think there was even a +10 scythe that nobody really used because no one fought with a scythe.
Yeah.
And this was in the pile of backup gear, or like not even backup gear, but the spare loot. And like we had 37 +1 rings of protection.
So here's my defense of that style. You're absolutely, I get the same. I get people just chucking a +3 sword like, I don't need that, right? Which seems crazy, right? So here's my defense of it. And one, Nerdarchy is blessed to have thousands of DMs out there who watch this, and maybe well over 1,000 potential DMs. And I'm calling you to my team, not Dave's, right? So join me, right?
Don't go to the dark side.
So here's why. And that is, one, Eberron has proven that it's functional. Eberron is a highly respected campaign, and there's dozens of books out for it.
It's actually my favorite campaign.
Yeah, exactly. And it is high magic, and it proves that this can work, right? So, and Keith Baker, he was the original, and Keith Baker came from our side. Eberron came from a contest that said, we're going to reach out and you tell us what players want to play, and give us your ideas, and we're going to make you a professional RPG creator. So Eberron came from that.
Just for point of fact, he was an established author.
He was already
he had already been. True. Right. That's valid. So there's a whole story beyond that one too. I'm really fascinated with Keith Baker. So, but here's the other flip side of that, and that is how many players. I have never had a player come to me and say, there's just too much magic items. You're giving out too much in the treasure item. How many of you have been in games where you're like, good Lord, we slew like 25 creatures. We went through all these dungeons, and I got this +1 dagger. What the heck?
All I got is a stupid T-shirt.
Yeah. Beehive magic.
So, I know that I have been on that side of the fence many times over the years. Like, all right, come on, where's my loot? Where's my thing? And Dave has heard that gripe many times from me specifically, and many times from other players. But that's not the way he runs. It's not his. It's not his style. He likes it for a magic item to either be meaningful to the story, to be meaningful in its creation, and to just hand out, it's a +1 item that's just a thing. It's not impactful to the overall game, especially in 5th edition. So he's like, why bother? So it's a a teeter-totter, seesaw, whatever you want to call it.
Now, here's like the other thing too. Like, I agree. Like, if you kill a dragon, it's going to have all that stuff in there.
Yeah.
But then but here's what I do. Right? Here's the next part. Like, they've slain the dragon. They're done the inventory. How you guys getting it out of here?
Oh, right. How do you carry it out?
Yeah. Because if they don't come up with something, absolutely, that treasure will be gone. Like, nature abhors a vacuum. You kill a dragon, everything all around will suddenly know. Mm-hmm. The news will spread like wildfire, and people will come for the stuff.
So actually, I do address that in my campaigns. My campaigns, almost within 2 or 3 sessions, most of my guys have a follower, and those followers help carry. And because to me, if you're running a D&D game, your player should roll like a pimp. You should have followers. You should have crazy amounts of magic and all that. Now, I have a question for you. So, I have a lot of respect for your opinion as far as low magic. I get where that came from because I came from that era. So I did grow up, playing in the 80s and the 90s, and there were a lot of GMs, and I think that worked then. My question is, I think, and I've been talking about this with Ted a little bit, but I think you guys are a little bit spoiled in that you can easily fill a table and easily keep players because you have a large community, right? Yes. A lot of people out there are going and sweeping up 3 or 4 players, right? And you're going to bring them, and you're going to bring those 3 or 4 players that you've lured to your table, and then you're going to go, you just did 3 sessions, and here's your +1 dagger, and then they go home and they play these games where they kill a rat and it literally bursts open with gold and an item. How on earth are you trying to sell that in 2015? That worked in 1995. How do you defend that in 2015?
It's a good point, Scott. I don't play video games, so I don't know anything about that.
And that's my issue.
I like that.
DMs are really actually dealing with
They're
that.
competing, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, and this is kind of some of the stuff we've already talked about, stuff that Dave and I have talked about many times, is when you go and sit down and you play that video game, with MMOs and other things that the video gaming community and coding is getting far more advanced, and you're able to do a lot more things than what I was able to do when I was playing, the standard RPGs that came out for the consoles and for the computer. But there is always a limitation.
Yeah, I would like to add my rebuttal to Scott is just this, right? When you go home and you play that game, you have certain choices you can make, right? And you're limited by those choices. But in my game, I had 2 players show up and go, I want to be goblins. In 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons,
you could do that.
There's they don't have that option, and
and that's where I was getting at.
And we discussed it, and we figure it out.
Beyond race choices, at a gaming table, you are literally only limited by your imagination. You can't and of course whatever the DM agrees or approves or runs for you, but you can literally say, okay, I want to play this thing here. Here's my backstory of how it's possible and why it's going to work. Let me do it. And unless you're trying to be like, oh well, I want to play a god, who's unlimited, in power at a standard D&D game. No, that's not gonna make sense. But I'm a fallen god. I'm a forgotten god.
Interesting.
And I have that, I remembered being worshipped. I remembered having limitless power, and I'm now down
in a tiny living space.
I'm now down to like a first level sorcerer in capabilities. I'm literally remember all this stuff, and I'm mortal now. So it's like, all right, you can try to climb back through the ranks, quote unquote, and try to establish this. And if a DM buys that, well then, hey, great. But at that gaming table, it's whatever you want to do. You walk into an innkeeper. Excuse me. You're not limited in the gossip, purchase something, whatever. In video games, they can't handle the sandbox. They can't handle the let me do whatever I want. If you want to run an evil game and start slaughtering towns and doing all this kind of stuff in a sandbox, and a DM who is totally willing to accept your character concept, you can do whatever you want.
Right. Well, and so what you're addressing is story rewards as well. And I know Scott absolutely does this in his games, in addition to the treasure and stuff. But by pulling the focus away from monetary valued items and magic items as reward, you start introducing story rewards that maybe you don't get that same fulfillment in a video game. Like, we have characters becoming mayors and ambassadors and knights.
It's true.
And
Great point.
Getting an administrative assistant, as a follower, or establishing a relationship with a tribe of orcs that are reclusive. Like, these are the kind of things that I don't think you can get playing a video game. And I like to emphasize other rewards than just money and gold and magic items to the players, and hopefully they'll find fulfillment in that as well. And then when they do get a magic weapon or a magic item, it becomes that much more special.
Well, I think, I see where you're coming from. Again, I'm gonna go hard for high magic, and the reason why is, to me, the way I justify it and say, you took a +3 sword and chucked it over there because you're not interested in it. What's going on? That's really weird. And the way I really am reinforcing to my players is I'm saying, this is Faerun, or this is Thracion, or whatever world, Kalimar, this is the world you're on. There might be 10 people on this entire world that have the destiny you have, that are playing at the level you're playing, in dungeons and going against creatures. You are fighting the best things that are the most difficult things to kill. And this world, you are George Washington. Your actions are going to change the structure of this world, the history of this world. And that's why there's all kinds of stuff that anybody else would think is a golden treasure, and to you it's junk, because the axis of this world is turning around your actions. And to me, that's a D&D game. That's the game that people want to be at.
Well, that in and of itself is a
whole other discussion.
Is a whole other discussion. As to how global or minute is your character,
or not even that. Is it it goes back to this discussion of is your character an adventurer because he's special, or he's just like everyone else and just happened to make different choices.
Right.
I'm definitely on the special end, in that. Well, the other thing is I have a degree in political science. That's my bachelor's, and I went into technology on my master's side. But to me, I'm really fascinated by politics. By the way, it's Super Bowl season for me. I'm really excited about the 2016 election coming up, and you could bring that right into the game. And so, and I really like having players that are at the center of history. And I really think, and that to me matches the the high magic campaigns, because they're going to the places that nobody else is going to see, and they're fighting the creatures that nobody else is going to fight. And so, and I definitely understand, and I actually really think I like the 1995 games. I think they were really cool. The way you're a hard scrabble, fighter, and you got a +1 dagger and all. But I think we're past that, and I feel a lot of GMs. And when I run a game, I'm thinking about other GMs out there, and I'm trying to build up GMs at the table, which I've done. I've had some players say, "I'm gonna take in the reins, and now I'm gonna run." And to me, I know how hard it is to get 4 or 5 players at the table, and the odds of all 4 or 5 of those players understanding the nuance it takes to understand a limited 1995 style game is really low. It's hard. It's a hard sell for the guy in Minnesota who just got 5 people to his table. He has a lot higher chance of success with a high magic campaign than with a low magic campaign. That's just my
take. I take it on as part of my responsibility to engage the players at different levels.
Okay.
And with the larger the group, the harder that gets to be.
Yeah.
And also, I go back to something you said earlier, which is we have a ton of people to pull from. We don't have any trouble filling our table. It wasn't always that way.
That's true.
And over the years,
right.
it has ebbed and flowed from 3 players, including 3 players and a DM, to 14 people at the table, and to now where we run
14 players.
Yeah, 14 players, or now where we run multiple gaming sessions. But we've had to scramble for players too, and we've actually done videos on that about getting players, and really the best way we found to get players is actually engaging the community and going out there to where the people are at. And you're right, getting 4 or 5 people is hard, but if you go to 10 different places where you can struggle to get 4 or 5 people, guess what, you end up with 20 easy.
Agreed. But is that what we're telling people? In order to run a D&D game, you need to go out and engage 10 stores and a whole community?
Maybe.
I thought, because honestly, in my opinion, I want to tell them, hey, here's the 3 books. You have to pay $150. That's the barrier to market. You're telling somebody, pay $150, read 900 pages, and then go to 10 stores? Like that's a really high barrier to market.
Like I said, I've never seen the problem. Yes, we've been down to a group as little as 3, and we've had a group as high as 14. But like, we've always been able to get people to the table, and if push came to shove, when we were down to 3 people, if we felt that 3 was not enough, we could have gone and gotten more. Like, we knew so many other people that we were friends with that we could have just said, come on, we want one more person at the table.
Here's the thing.
Wait. I got to interrupt. I'm a Nerdarchy fan, like you guys out there, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you don't know it. You don't realize you've always been the Michael Jordan of D&D, and you're the Scottie Pippen. You guys live and breathe, and D&D pumps through your veins. I think this is one area where I would just tell you guys, I'm not sure you guys remember how hard it is to hold a game together, to bring a game together, and even to do what you just said. Like, to you, the reason why it's not a big deal to you to go to 10 shops and to pull a player from each shop is because a lot of people would stop at store 3. You wouldn't, because you love,
you
like,
D&D
flows
context.
through your veins.
You got to put it in context, right? So we met people that we game with now because we went to Geek Fest,
right,
which is just a local convention. We went there as Nerdarchy or whatever, but we also went there because it's around the corner from our house.
Yeah.
My other brother, Jeremy, found a flyer on his car
at a pizza shop.
And I'm like, oh, we'll check this out. And from there, we picked up two players just by going and hanging out and meeting people. We found you at Yo-Yo Club.
That's true.
We weren't going to these places to look for gamers. We just went to the places where gamers were and go, oh, you do the thing I like as well. Yeah, let's get together.
So typically, if you're going to be involved in a game, like, if you have access to multiple gaming shops, you're not going to just one, like, unless you were like, I am so loyal, I only do my shopping here. You want to see a variety. All right, well, this shop here is going to have this thing here that I like, but this shop over here is going to be more involved with that. So whether it be Magic the Gathering, gaming books, miniatures, comic books, used board games, whatever it is, you're going to get tied into all of these different things throughout the years. And there are, half a dozen places within a half hour, 40 minutes easily from here that I've been to on a regular basis to say, hey, I'm going to frequent your shop. And if you spend a little bit of time just being there for your own thing, you can be able to meet people in your community. You're going to be able to say, hey, is there a poster board of people looking for players? Is there a poster board of people who are looking for a group? And if there's not one, you can always say to the owner, to the shopkeep, hey, I'm in this situation where I'm either looking for a group or I'm looking for a player. Do you have some kind of notice board that I could put something up? Or, do you know anyone that's looking for, what I am?
We are privileged there.
Yeah, exactly. You guys live on the East Coast.
Because we live in a major metropolitan area and we have lots of options.
You hit the nail on the head. So I'll throw it out. And I'm glad you guys are starting to see. You have no idea how easy it is for you. You live on the East Coast. You guys have known for a long time. You're also energetic people. So I'll give you an example of where I'm talking about. Lived in Lancaster. Mm-hmm. Worked on my car. Went out and I was working on my car, and I am horrible with mechanics, right? So, and this guy came out and literally, stood on the stoop and watched me for about 5 minutes and laughed and came up and started, said, this is how you take off a carburetor, right? Mm-hmm. And his name was Carlos, and, he helped me with my car, and we just talked for a while, lived in the same apartment building. He started playing in my game. Carlos wore cool shoes. He had a hot girlfriend. He had no business being in a D&D game, right? He came into and we became friends, and he joined my D&D game. He kept that on such the down low. He kept it a secret that he played Dungeons and Dragons. He loved it. And he was a great player, and we played for like 3 or 4 years. And by the time I moved to PA, he was like, oh, I'm going to lose D&D, right? And I said, you could be a DM. Right, and he's like, "Oh man, what would that take?" Well, first I have to tell people that I play D&D, right? That is what I'm talking about. If you tell that guy $150 for 3 books, 900 pages read, 10 stores, he's out. You got to tell him $150 pay, for your books. and then bring your character,
Let's face it,
get your
people are
players
really
together and
paying,
play high
like,
magic because it's your
80.
best shot. You know.
People are paying $80.
Oh, on Amazon. That's a great
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, they're not going to a shop. They're getting it straight out of Amazon. That's a good point. Yeah. So you know, but my point is, you guys are used to that high barrier of market because you're willing to pay that price. I want players where there's a low barrier of market. They can bring players to the table, and they have a high chance of that sticking and making sense to their players. And high magic campaigns work.
So,
Yours is a hard sell.
So
Tell me I'm wrong.
You loop it.
I can't because I haven't had a problem selling it.
Yeah.
you loop it back. So my idea behind the
carrot,
the middle ground, if you will, is I want players to be able to have access to magic items so that they really feel that they exist out of a normal world. And that you have the ability
because
to...
them casting Fireball and Eldritch Bolt wasn't... Eldritch Blast wasn't doing it for him, huh?
If you play just a straight fighter or a rogue and you don't have access to magic, then, there's nothing to have that player cross that threshold. And that's a character choice, a player choice, whatever you will. But if they've made that choice, then you want to have something that is going to allow them to cross that threshold. Yes, oh, well, I'm playing an elf or a dragonborn. Yes, these are fantastic races, or fantastical, whatever you want to call it. But to cross over into that world, you want to have access to things. You want them to feel. You want the cleric in the group to literally be calling upon his divinity, his divine magic, and really have things that happen. Yes, you want your wizards casting Fireball and Cone of Cold and all these great things that really show that magic exists. But I think magic items are something that go above and beyond the basic spell casting. But I also don't want it to go so far that the actual magic items supersede whatever it is that the player can do. Because if it's like, oh, well, all of this is happening because you've got this slew of magic items, especially if it's something, it's like, oh, well, I'm a fighter. Well, now I just strapped on this belt of giant strength, so my 12 strength is now a 25, and I've got this +3 great axe that's imbued with, all this extra magic beyond the +3. Well, now I'm looking at, a plus, 6, 7, 8 difference to my abilities. Well, that's more than what I had to start with. So there, it's the magic doing the work for you, as opposed to
you might as well stay at home and send your gear out to adventure.
All right, so go ahead.
And that's really where it gets to. So it's like I like items like I gave you that book that it really
the book of knowledge was extremely useful.
It possesses
one fact each day,
interchangeable knowledge
it's really
that
helpful.
Number one, if there's anything that I want to spew out to be able to help out the campaign or tease something, I can put it in there, and you're not going to know whether it's a campaign hook, a useful bit of information, or just something out there. And I created Rune for you not only to get over a problem, but to create something that was unique and interesting to be able to put into the game. And you found it very useful. It's been a role-playing tool as well, and it's something that when you eventually go back to your clan, that's going to be like, wow, this is really awesome, because magic is just as useful as smithing to your clan. So it's like, well, this is geared specifically towards your clan.
The Book of Knowledge was incredibly useful. I would still defend. So you're saying, I have this belt of giant strength, I have this +3 axe, and it kicks off a lightning and and a sound effect when I hit something. And you're saying that you might as well send your gear out. I'm totally different. Basically, so they're in the town, and somebody says, "Hey, there's a nest of goblins." My players, with all the crap bristling off of them, are like, they go over to the stable boy and say, listen, here's my +3 axe, or actually, here's the +2 magical short sword. You're going to go clear out the goblin nest. We're going over there, and we're going to topple a floating wizard's tower, because that's the stuff we deal with. We don't deal with goblin nests, right? And to me, that goes along with the other thing that goes along with high magic is incredibly accelerated games. I am always doing everything I can to iterate my D&D games faster and faster and faster. Last thing that I think is a bonus to say that D&D at its core really does want high magic games is high fiver out to all those people who love, to the 3 other guys who love 4th edition. I loved 4th edition. 4th edition, magic items were where? Where were the magic items located in 4th edition? Do you remember?
Were they in the player's handbook?
They were in the player's handbook because they belong to the players.
That's a lucky guess.
Magic items belong to the players. They should be able to buy them as standard equipment. That was awesome in 4th edition, and I desperately miss it. And it's not, magic items aren't precious treasures that have to be handed out by the DM. You can get a whole bunch of them at the shop, and they fall off of whatever you killed like crazy, and you bristle up, and then you go attack
Monsters
bigger
with treasure pinatas.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go find bigger things to kill. That's the way it rolls.
All right, guys. Why don't you let us know in the comments below? High magic, middle magic, low magic.
Monster pinatas.
What do you run and why? Put it in the comments below. While you're doing that, feel free to click like, share, even subscribe.
Check us out at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.